I feel like Mike Jordan. Give me the rock and I'm scoring. Hey, came from the bottom, that's foreign. I swear that I'm up for the sun in the morning. Yeah, they know that we ain't the same. 4-2, we rap the game. I told them this ain't a game.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Big League Chicago, and we are bringing it back to OG Big League Chicago. Me and Jack, your boys.
Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry.
I know,
mean, I know
Jack,
it's been a while. I know it's been a while, and it's been a depressing summer. I mean, we're not here to talk about Southside baseball, so that's the one thing that is a fucking positive. But it has been a while.
It ended badly for both of us at the end of the season, but me and Jack.
At least your team had a chance. Your team had a chance. Your team had a chance.
Yeah, that's actually very facts. So, but me and Jack back at it again on Big League Chicago, and we're gonna start this one a little different today. I don't know if you guys could see a little sweater I got on, a little 88.
You were well prepared. You were well prepared.
A little caner.
You gotta respect the guy.
Absolutely, dude. First of all, how you been, Jack? Because it has been a minute since you've been on Big League Chicago, but you've been doing your thing with Slot Shot and getting those previews up, which, by the way, go check those out on Spotify and Apple. But how you been, dude?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, things are good. It's a busy time. I actually coach hockey also on the side, so it's just kind of always at the rink, and then if not, recording with the boys. But it was a great summer. Too fast of a summer. Very fortunate and very happy to see your beautiful face and be on the other side of the camera for Big League Chicago again. And
right.
I missed it. But no, excited that hockey season starts tomorrow, and starting with the Blackhawks Pittsburgh. I think ESPN slate like 7:00, 7:30 tomorrow. Couldn't be more thrilled for things to kick off after a long summer of like we hinted at, painful baseball. So happy as it can be. Happy as can be.
So let's start with that. The Blackhawks, after getting the number 1 overall pick in this last NHL draft, they draft Bedard. It was the obvious choice, right? Like, obviously, the GM wasn't going to say anything. Like, who are you going to pick? You're going to pick Bedard. It's like, we're going to look at all the guys. They end up with Bedard, just like you should. How has he been in the preseason, and what are your expectations for Bedard, in his first game tomorrow?
Expectations in his first game. The reality is he will be a superstar. He will be a guy that will score goals in this league for a long time. I think as an organization as a whole to pass the torch in a true fashion of Kane leaving obviously at the deadline, and him being the organization's fortunately last first overall pick back in 07 to now being almost 7 or what is it? 14,
almost
7
years,
14 years to the date. We're
16 years.
16, whatever it is. I'm not a math guy. I've never claimed to be. But no, the reality is we get to pass the torch to a guy like Connor Bedard, a phenomenal phenom who's been kind of been talked about, this guy at number 1 for the last seemingly like 4 years. And no, but I think through the preseason, I was actually fortunate enough to go catch the game versus Detroit last Tuesday in Chicago, which was fun and exciting. And he was able to see himself on the score sheet in terms of assists, and I think he scored an empty netter, which was exciting in his first preseason goal. But he was actually kind of you could tell not disgusted by the fact that it was an empty netter for his first, but wasn't thrilled by that fact. And I think you love to see that. But in terms of the score sheet, he's been turning his vision into a lot of goals in terms of assists, and that had shown through the 4 or 5 preseason games that he played. But no, the reality is he'll be lined up on the first line. It looks like we use daily faceoff for Slot Shot, which kind of gives you a sense of what the latest lines in practice have been. And it looks like we'll get into the kind of the other additions of the roster, but when you've got guys like Taylor Hall, who's a former first overall himself back in Edmonton all those days, a guy who's won the Hart before back in New Jersey, and then pairs him with a local Boston guy, which I think I think, well, he might not be from Boston, but Ryan Donato, who came over from the expansion team Seattle in free agency, and
Oh.
those are interesting veterans to play with. You know, he was not playing with Donato for all of it, all of the preseason, but the fact that now there's the roster is for pretty much set. Actually, no, it is set. They posted on their Instagram today what it looked like, and like I said, we'll go through the additions, but expectations. Vegas has him for I think 30.5 for his goal total. The boys on Slotshot, we were talking more like 40 and a half.
Right.
So we think the goals are going to come, and you know, I think that that is exciting, and my concern, you know, I think I'm you know, alone on this planet because of how good Connor Bedard looks. And looking at it through a position standpoint, I don't love what he's brought to the center role. A little worried about his positioning, especially in the defensive zone, but hopeful that things can kind of, you know, feel himself out. And the fact is, he turned 18 in like August, so
Yeah.
he's still a teenager, and he will be for another 2 years. So
Yeah.
the Hawks are fortunate to have the young Canadian phenom and build around him as things looked obviously pretty bleak going into last year. And you know, I know on Big League Chicago talking about if and when, and you know, I don't pride myself on that, but you know, the fact is, and actually Ross and I have a funny thing. I start counting how many times I say that. The fact is, because it's awful. It's awful. I hate it. But
I remember we started counting. What was it?
Something
we were
stupid.
doing it. We were doing it like you would say something.
I have my things. And it's
the fact is,
the fact is, it kills me. But so Ross, we're keeping the counter going for both shows. But no, you know, the expectations on this team, you know, they're still picked to finish in the cellar, and that's okay. And you know, I think if we can talk more to Bedard, and you have more questions, I'm happy to talk more Bedard, but I'm also happy to talk about what Davidson was able to acquire throughout the offseason.
Yeah, well, you know, with Connor Bedard, because a lot of guys do. What'd you say? Vegas had him over 40.5 goals for the season.
No, 30.
Oh, 30. And you
and
guys
I can confirm that
40?
right now. Yeah, we're thinking. We've got him for a 10 goal slot shot bump.
What
you
about
heard it here first?
What about game one?
Game one.
Pittsburgh. What are we thinking? First goal of his young career in Pittsburgh against Sidney Crosby and you know, that Pittsburgh team.
Do I think he gets his first versus his childhood hero and Sidney Crosby? Do I think he gets his first?
It's a hell of a matchup on ESPN.
I'm trying to find the odds of what. No, it is. It's a good one. I don't. You know, unfortunately, I don't think necessarily the Hawks pull this one out. I've got them beating Montreal actually on Saturday, but for Saturday's picks, our first annual Saturday's picks, those graphics will be up. But do I think he scores on Tuesday night? Yeah, why not? ESPN, the spotlight's on him. Fuck it. I think it's the odds get worse as it goes on. So I think the best odds. I'm trying to pull them up, but I've been locked out of my book. So bear with me on that one. But I think the best odds for it right now are game one. So if you are a gambler, and I'm not saying that I am an expert, we're not Johnny Parlay here. He's not here tonight, unfortunately.
Johnny Parlay.
But I'm confident in his talent, and I think, you know, it'd be pretty cool to score his first with his childhood hero across the bench on the other side. So that would be pretty cool for Bedard, and it would be nice to see the Hawks be competitive in a game where, you know, Pittsburgh is hopefully rebounded, and you can catch those, and obviously they're the Eastern Conference previews that we did on Slotshot Podcast. But enough about that. And what else you got? What else you got about Bedsy?
So he's got to be the guy. Like, he's got to be out there with the starters, right? Like,
oh yeah, no, well, it's no question. I mean, I think the
100%.
first preseason game he played, he had like a 2-minute shift in overtime. It led to the game-winning goal, which would have been probably maybe a little bit questionable if 2.5 minute shifts in the NHL it's long, and then when you add it on to 3-on-3 and that much ice and that much space, it's exhausting. So you know, but it was impressive, and he was able to stay at a competitive level and ended up feeding Anthony Ciu, my tiny asshole, like I like to call him, with a nice backhand sauce for a break, and Anthony Ciu was able to bury it to send the United Center faithful home happy in Bedard's UC debut, but
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I think the UC faithful will have to wait until like the 20th or 21st until the Blackhawks
Yeah.
open it up.
I was
On
gonna say these first 5 games for the Hawks season, they're in Pittsburgh, they're in Boston, they're in Montreal, they're in Toronto, and they're in Colorado. Their first home game doesn't come until Game 6 against Vegas, and these first 6 games, even the home game against Vegas, tough games, man. Do you see them actually getting a win in any of these? Maybe against Montreal.
I have, like I said, Saturday's picks. I like them on against Montreal. Looking at let me pull up the full schedule. Shame on me. Uh, I've gotten back into the big league spirit, the big league Chicago spirit
Absolutely,
for
dude.
us faithful. But no, yeah, I mean it's a tough start. Pittsburgh, Boston has taken a bit of a regression in that
Mm-hmm.
sense, and it's going to be a different year, but that's still a much better hockey team, much better roster throughout. And I think that's a tough one. And there's a reason. Pittsburgh
Mm-hmm.
opens up as -250 favorites. Boston opens up as -320, and then you get to Montreal and let's see if they've got odds for it yet. I don't know if they do. On ESPN they don't, but I would expect that to be a bit of a closer matchup as both teams were towards the
Yeah.
end of the bottom of the cellar in terms of and that's Colton Dock was a in terms of Kirby Dock's brother, who obviously the
Mm-hmm.
Hawks traded to Montreal. That's a big one. He circles on the calendar, but I got the Hawks beating Montreal, getting their first win on the 14th.
There we go. There we go.
That would be my prediction, but hopeful that they put in a good performance. Maybe beat Pittsburgh. They've put in good performances versus Pittsburgh before. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how it went last year, but then again, last year is mostly a blur to every Hawks fan.
Yeah,
So
we want to forget last year for sure. So
exactly.
who's going to be in that first line with Bedard then?
So yeah, Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall's an interesting. I kind of hinted
Former
at him
number one.
earlier. Former number one with Edmonton, kind of burnt out. Obviously they've got McDavid and the Leon Draisaitl show up there in Edmonton, but Taylor Hall, he bounced around and ended up landing himself in Boston a few years ago, and Boston was hoping to kind of recapture a little bit more of that touch that he has. The reality
Mm-hmm.
is Taylor Hall is a pass first player. He likes to see the ice better more than shoot. We finally saw Taylor Hall score in the preseason, but no, it was interesting to watch him live, and his first time. Watching him in a Hawks uniform, it's a little bit different than watching him obviously in an opposing uniform. But watching his style play on the power play, I think him and
Mm-hmm.
Bedard will absolutely earn their stripes. But I think you get what you get with Taylor Hall, and there's been a regression in his career for a reason. And I think his style of game is a little bit different to what he had people looked at when he was hopefully breaking into the league. But the Hawks are hopeful with the 2-year deal with that deal for him and Foligno, who was a UFA at the time. They re-signed him to keep him in Chicago for 1 year, but
Mm-hmm.
in that deal, sending Ian Mitchell and Alex Regula, who I believe was waived by Boston already. Mitchell was not, as far as I know of, but I got to double check on that. But you look at that; that's 2 veterans that are entering into this lineup, and that's the reality of where this Hawks team is. And Hall will bring a little size, 6'1", 210. He'll
Mm-hmm.
play all the power play minutes. He'll be with Bedard for most of the year, unless given, he's a deadline deal. But I think that would be next year before that happens.
Yeah.
Given what he's carrying for his cap. I don't have that in front of me right now, but I know it's a heftier one than not. But that's why you look at the roster and you look at what David Sedin, Ryan Donato, like I said, played in Seattle last year. Brought him in, I think, on a 1-year deal. You would look to him for him to be dealt if and when the Hawks bad.
Mm-hmm.
At the deadline, then you look at Foligno. He's another 6'10", 35-year-old, 210. He's a guy that they kind of brought in. I think he's going to be a fourth-line bandit. No question about it. But that fourth
Mm-hmm.
line on that Tuesday night game looked phenomenal versus Detroit. But yes, they're playing fourth-line minutes. They're playing against the fourth line most likely. But things looked good. They brought a little presence to him, and he'll be paired with Corey Perry, who has been stashed away in Tampa the last few years. I think won a cup with them. He's a big 6'3", 208 body. The size is there. Speed is not. But we'll get in front of the net. And, in the game we watched on Tuesday, had 2 power play goals. So it was exciting to see Perry make his debut as a guy who the Hawks most notably faced when he's with Anaheim and all those series. And and people didn't love Corey Perry, but the Worm, as Ross likes to call him from Slotshot, and who has also made an appearance on Only Football from the Star Six Media family, likes to call him. He is the Worm. So look for the Worm to produce, and then finally, it's exciting, obviously, with Bedard, Kevin Korchinski. 6'1" left-handed shot, 185 defenseman who they drafted 7th overall last year, has made the roster out of camp. So played in the WHL, played with Doc last year, Colton Doc, who is also in camp and actually made a run for the Memorial Cup in Canadian and some U.S. junior hockey. The paid leagues is what it is more like. So it's the guys that are they're ineligible for NCAA hockey, but it is equivalent, if not better, than NCAA hockey, and it's where most of the talent comes for youth out of the North America side of things for hockey. But they were able to play in the Memorial Cup, and out of like 100-something teams, it's a very impressive thing and a very rare thing for players to be able to say that you're able to do. But yeah, no, I think when you have guys like Seth Jones, who's making $9.5 million, you need more out of him. He's got to produce. He's got to make that semi less of a bad contract and hopefully make that a little bit more excusable. But there are holes in this team. There's pieces that they're hopeful that they will fill. I think this roster, where the organization was ranked like 3rd or 2nd in terms of prospect pools. So the future is bright for the organization. There's no question about that. But 26, 49, and 7 record. Maybe you get to 30, 35. Get to 30 wins would be a nice, that's a 4-win bump. But, I think if you can keep yourself in a hunt for a lottery pick, we saw this year with obviously Bedard. You never know. But I think growing the future is what you're going to see. And that is the reality with where the Blackhawks are as an organization.
Yeah, and you mentioned Taylor Hall, pass first type of guy. Do you think that's why Davidson brought him in for, I think he brought him in before they drafted Bedard, but I mean, they kind of knew that they were going to pick that they bring him in just to kind of supplement that, to kind of bring in a veteran who's going to be like passing to Bedard to try to get his goals up, try to get his confidence up.
Absolutely. And, I think Taylor Hall carries himself as a guy who's been on a lot of teams with a lot of first overall picks. He played with Jack Hughes, who had a phenomenal year in New Jersey last year. It's been a little while since he's been in New Jersey, but he's played with top talents throughout his time and career. And, he is a veteran at this point, but like I said, he has won the Hart, which is the MVP. And there's a reason he was able to do that in New Jersey at his time. But we're about 3 or 4 seasons off from that type of Taylor Hall. But nonetheless, I think he's 30, 31 maybe. So there's still life in the legs, and it'll be interesting. At this point in time, the Hawks can take the money and run with it, and they've locked him down for it's a 2-year deal. I think you would expect him here for 2 years. I'd be surprised, and it would have to be a real win-win situation for Hall to be here longer than that, and that would be great. I wouldn't hate that, but I would expect it to be what the contract runs, and then kind of evaluate from there.
And then with Seth Jones, you mentioned he's making $9 million. He's on this Hawks team long term.
Correct.
Do you see him? Because he had mentioned, I had read something. He's like, it would be great to put on the C for this team. I'm here long term. He's been here a while already. Is there anything, like, I don't want to say to worry about, because I feel like you shouldn't really worry about someone with or without a C, but is that something of concern at all? Because I remember Taze put it on pretty young, and he kept it on for his entire career before he basically is taking time away from hockey. But does that worry you at all on this Hawks team? Very like young type of.
Well, so
Hawks
the
team?
organization has gone on record, and they're not going to name a captain this year. They're going to stick, I think, with three assistant captains.
Alternates, yeah.
Yep. Connor Murphy will definitely be one of them. Seth Jones, I think, will get an A as well. And then Corey Perry was rocking it a lot through preseason. Could be Foligno, could be Tyler Johnson, because he's been there for a few years at this point. I think all goes well, Connor Bedard is your eventual captain if he is the leader and the true phenom that could take over this organization to the next step. Like he will. I think he will. I'm not going to try and scare the fans. That would be best situation for Bedard.
Yeah, and you mentioned Connor Murphy, you talked about Athanasiou earlier. Like, we have a very good prospect pool. Do you see any of these guys kind of sticking around for the long term with like when the Hawks start getting to be
Anthony,
cup contenders?
right off the bat, Anthony Sio is, as much as has he led this team in scoring last year, I think, and that was before I think Kane left, but I'm not totally sure. He's not a guy that's you find on a winning team, and I don't hate to bash on the player. It's kind of the lifestyle he's made. He's an NHL talent. Don't get me wrong, but his style game doesn't suit of what these contenders are looking for at this point in time. Great skill, no doubt about it. But I think if it's just his defensive ability as a wing, or just his kind of lack of IQ in some senses of the game beyond, kind of below the red line into towards the defensive zone, I think there's too much of a concern that Anthony C would be that guy that would be on a cup contending team. But you never know. And it's, if he buys in, he's a guy that's bounced around for a reason. And, I'm sure he's looking to stick on a team, but we'll see what happens is what I would say about that one. And then, Hall, that's a more interesting case, at 31 now, 33 in 2 years. Be interesting to see what, like I said, it's just kind of a trial error run with him. And if him and Bedard truly are, an elite combo, then maybe yes, you keep them around, but you're hopeful that these guys that they were able to take they're going to go to college and play potentially a year or two in college, and then are able to develop into NHL regular talent. This Oliver Moore kid, he's supposed to be the best skater, fastest skater in the draft. You'd love for him to eventually be able to play with Bedard in the future, and tons of potential coming through the pipeline.
Yeah, and you talked about Oliver Moore being a fast skater. I think the talk in the NHL has been moving towards more fast pace
Correct.
of play. Do you think with the pool that the Hawks got with Kyle Davidson getting the guys, do you think they're moving towards that? Like moving towards like catching up to a modern NHL, I guess you would say?
It's it's the rebuild that they've been honest about. I think we're in year 3, maybe of I would say we're in year 4 of the actual rebuild. I think they would say they're in year 2 or 3. So it's, yes, I think they are acquiring the right prospects. It's it's a matter of developing talent, and we've seen it through Chicago sports and the lack of that at the quarterback position, and we'll talk about that with the Bears. But it's something to be hopeful about, and nothing's ever a guarantee, but I'm confident that with the day and age, with the way the cap is raising, also this will become another free agency friendly, not friendly, but free agency targeted market, and places that people will want to play. And I think you would expect Bedard to be with the Hawks for the long time, and you got to keep him happy, and he's a guy that hates losing. So you got to think you would build that to be the one of the core pieces. And unfortunately, yes, Seth Jones is kind of part of that core. Coming into his career and through this, the first 5 years of his career, I would say that was an awesome thing, and there's a reason he earned $9.5 million. But at this point, and the way he's played since he's become a Blackhawk and his end in Columbus, it just hasn't been a win-win scenario for either parties involved.
Yeah, you kind of hope that they got Taze first, the Hawks, back in 07, right, or 06, something like that. Yeah, and they then really 2009 it was like playoffs, and then 2010 it was cup. And then it just kind of went from there, and you kind of hope that happens with Connor Bedard, in 2 years. Like you said, he's not a guy who likes to lose. I mean, this guy loves to play fucking hockey. He avoided eye contact, so he wouldn't have to come out of the goddamn game. So he wants to win. So hopefully in 2-3 years, the Hawks do get into that, the winning ways. This is going to be technically Kyle Davidson's second year as GM?
Yes.
Year and a half, really, right?
I think year and a half full wise. Yes, I think so.
So with him being the GM, I know you said year 4, they'll say year 2. How many years are you giving Kyle Davidson to really put a winner on the ice?
I think Chicago will give him at least 5 from when they allowed him to take over. And if you look back to when Kane and Taze came over into this organization, Tays was third overall in 2006. Kane was first overall in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Bedard was first overall in 2023. What will 2024 hold for us? And you keep building the pipeline, and the Hawks were able to maneuver things to get Oliver Moore in the first round as well. So years where you have two first overall picks and continue that up, and you're gonna hit. You're going to hit on some of these guys. And, yes, through the dynasty of the Blackhawks, they were fortunate enough to have role players like, Shaw, Burrish back to 2010. Well, Panarin didn't win a cup with his team, but just the guys that they were able to develop and see through to be part of these role guys and what made the Hawks as depth as they were. Yes, you had the acquisitions of Hossa and veterans and, Sharp and all those guys, but the pieces that they were also able to plug and play with that they were able to develop, like I said. So it'll be interesting to see. Rockford was a playoff team last year in the AHL. It'll be interesting to see what they're able to produce this year. I think it's going to be another young team, and there was guys that were drafted later rounds that were late into camp this year. Marcel, best name in the organization, was in camp for a little while. I think he'll play in the AHL this year. You just want to see these guys develop and hopefully turn into future NHLers.
Yeah, 100%. So the game is tomorrow, 7 Eastern on ESPN. What is that, 6 Central? About 6:30 Central?
7 like Eastern?
I think it's, or is it 7 Central?
7 Central.
7 Central. There you go. 7 Central, 8 Eastern for the Hawks opener against Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh, against Sidney Crosby. You got any last little notes on Bedard, on the Blackhawks before we move on?
Be patient.
Is that more? I think that's more for yourself. You're saying that out loud for yourself.
Yeah, it applies to me. Absolutely. No question about it. But no, I think, with this team, it's going to be fun to watch Bedard. It's going to be fun to see things kind of change and develop throughout the year. You're hopeful guys step up and come up through development, like I said, but expectations are still low, and that's why I say be patient. Be patient.
Who's so I know Alex's team is the Red Wings. Who's Ross's team?
Boston.
Oh yeah, the Bruins. That's right. I keep forgetting. All right. Well,
best record in the league and crashed out in the first round. It was awesome to watch for the first
I'm sure you
first-hand view of it. Was unreal.
I'm sure he was heated. Was heated.
You got that right.
It's going to be a great opening night for NHL with Connor Bedard and Sidney Crosby going head-to-head tomorrow. Definitely keep an eye on that game. But let's move on to Bears breakdown. The Bears finally take a dub, baby. They take a dub against the Commanders on national television on Thursday Night Football, 40-20, a game where Justin Fields, DJ Moore connected 3 times, and Justin Fields had another touchdown to Komet. This was one hell of a game, and as a Bears fan, you love to see it because they were on a 14-game losing streak, and you come into this game and if you watch only football, I had them losing this game because I was like, you know what, the offense, yeah, they're gonna probably do really well, but this Commanders team is gonna be better. I just expected that, and what did they do? They came out swinging, 40 points. Justin Fields had 282 yards. Moore had 8 receptions, 230 yards. His first 3 touchdown game. Komet had that 5 catches, 42 for a touchdown. The defense actually looked like an NFL defense. They had an interception, 5 sacks, only 29 rushing yards. They gave up a lot through the air, but our secondary is banged up. But this team looked good. The O-line looked good. They only let up 3 sacks, which, I mean, it's 3 sacks, but comparably to the rest of the season, it's pretty good. Tevin Jenkins was back. You had Nate Davis in there. Just the line looked good. The offense looked good. Cairo Santos didn't miss a kick. Like, it is just everything was going well for the Bears in this game. Jack, what did you think? What were your reactions to this game? Because this was somewhat of a surprising win, but also like just an exciting one because it broke the streak of 14-game for losing.
Well, I think first and foremost, it saved Matt Eberflus.
There
coming
were
into
rumors. Yeah.
There were rumors. There were rumors. I believe those rumors. I fully believe them. I think.
I did not. I did not.
Well, but
I didn't believe
you
them.
got to look at it. They play on a Thursday. They're
Yeah.
off this weekend. 10 days. If you're going to do it, it made sense now. 14 losses or 14 straight losses. 3-18 coming into it as an overall coaching record was the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Not what it. 0-3 start, potentially 0-4 with what we expected.
Yeah.
So
they started 0-4.
and hadn't scored 20 points, and that was the theme to start the season last year. And then things started to click, and these Bears teams were in more games than people probably thought. Yes, they finished dead last and earned the number 1 pick, but no, I think that there's no denying there's a reason the Bears struggled for 3 games or for 3 games to score over 20 points
to score over 20
points, and then they scored 28 against Denver, and it whoop-de-doo, it was awesome. Cole Kmet looked great. Looked what happens when you throw to DJ Moore. It was the start of it, and thankfully they realized, all right, well, we brought this guy in to be the number 1 receiver for a reason. All right, well, let's throw the ball to him. What happens? 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. Fuck. All right, well, that makes sense. Awesome. And the reality is the line looked good. Darnell Wright has he's been, I think, 8th in pass blocking and like 6th in run support. So you love to see what the progression has been for the first rounder for the Bears after they traded back. So that's looked great, and the protection looks bright. Trevin Jenkins, that was a little bit worrisome that he's coming into another year hurt, banged up, but he finally, after kind of his rookie year of the nonsense that was coming into everything, and it's great to see that that he's healthy and hopefully playing. And then it was refreshing to watch a Bears game and watch it for 4 quarters, because the reality is it's been very hard to do that. And yes, the Denver game was exciting, and we were actually recording Slot Shot for the second half, but it felt like for a little bit of the Denver game when things started to Washington started to seem to turn some of the momentum in their hand, but fourth quarter touchdowns, something the Bears have seemingly not been able to do for this season, came back into to the Bears play. And that last touchdown to DJ Moore, who showed he can rack up the yards after the catch, and there's a reason he is as lethal as he is, and was able to score, and the extra point helped as well. I think they had the 2 field goals they had in that fourth quarter as well. But the worrisome, we all saw it. It was a fantastic attempt of a catch by Khalil Herbert. Was it a catch? I can't remember, but
no, it was not. It was not. It was an attempt for sure. Yeah.
And it was a hell of an attempt, but
he
tweaked his ankle, and it doesn't look good. They haven't said what the severity of it is, but you hate to see that. And I know Roschon Johnson, I think, left the Denver game with a concussion, or left this game with a concussion.
He left the Denver game under concussion protocol. I think he left early enough to where he was not going to be out for this game, but then he got injured in this game as well.
So the reality is, injuries pile up in the NFL. It's been a weird year in terms of people getting hurt, but we're seeing that with this Bears team. Thankfully, they played 4 quarters of football. They looked like an actual team. They looked competitive. They looked like they desired being out there, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So I love that, and it's all you can ask for. But I think there's still a reality around this team, and I think there's still questions to be answered. But when you have Fields, who threw for 4 touchdowns last weekend, and then 4 again this weekend,
last week,
and that steps in the right direction. You did say it. Yes, the secondary's banged up. Brisker's hurt. I think Kyle Gordon is still hurt.
Jalen Johnson.
Who gives a shit about Eddie Jackson at this point? But that's truthful. If he's not a ball hawk, he's worthless. So you can't tackle worth a fuck, and it sucks. But Eddie Jackson hasn't been the same since that historic defensive season. But I think the big story with Tremaine Edmonds is that they're playing him in a role that he seemingly isn't best fit for, and was when you have Matt Milano next to you in Buffalo, and you have the defense that Buffalo had, he looked freaking awesome, obviously, and he's still a very impressive football player, no doubt. But you could see, yes, I think TJ Edwards is a good linebacker, but as long as we lack the pressure that we do, and we have the worst third down offense or defense in the league, this team is going to struggle.
Yeah,
Plain and simple.
100%. And TJ Edwards he's leading. He's a leading tackler on this Bears team, and he's your outside linebacker. Like, I get it, but I mean, Edmonds, like we have all these guys, Sanborn, and you said it, when you're not putting the pressure down on these guys in third down when it mattered, like you saw that against Tampa Bay, you saw that against all these other teams they've been going against. The third down is bad. Now with Fields though in this offense, and actually let's stick with the defense real quick. Matt Eberflus today said that he is looking for a defensive advisor now.
Correct.
He was able to call a good defense. Either Eberflus told these guys, yo, I'm losing my job if we don't win this game, or the BUTKUS news was just that emotional where these guys wanted to win that bad for him, or it was a combination of both. Eberflus put a defense out there that was able to, keep the rushing game low. They got torched in the air, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because the points weren't there. And they were able to get interceptions. They were able to pressure the quarterback with some sacks. Like, they were able to do that. He's going to get a defensive guy to come in and try to maybe not necessarily take over for him, but really kind of maybe game plan for these teams probably coming up. And this is all assumptions. This is what he said, just from what he said today. So we can only assume that. You said the questions around the team. Eberflus and Getsy are probably the two biggest, I think, question marks on this team right now. Because, and shit, you can even put in Fields there, right? Because after the performances against the Kansas City Chiefs and even the Broncos when they lost it late, we were starting to bundle these guys up with, like, you know what? Get them. We might as well get rid of Fields while he still has value. Get rid of Eberflus as head coach, and obviously Getsy is the offensive coordinator, and maybe start fresh if we really do have that first overall again next year, with or without the Carolina pick. You know what I mean? So, are they still the biggest ones with the Are they still the biggest question going into the rest of the season? And can you see a future next season with these guys still here?
They would have to pull what the Detroit Lions did last year, and that was start 0-6 and then finish just. Did they make the playoffs last year?
No, they didn't. But I think they were
barely
9-8 or 10-7, something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's truthfully what I would have to see from this Bears team, because Eberflus was brought in before Poles was hired. Mm-hmm. I think it was on record that Poles wanted Bellamy, who's now the offensive coordinator, funny enough, in Washington. Yeah. But I think new change of the guard when things changed after obviously firing Nagy, they went and hired a defensive-minded head coach. Yeah. When you're trying to progress Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. All right, so then they went and brought in the guy that's supposed to be the mastermind about Aaron Rodgers' success in Luke Getsy. And what has he shown? Last year, his quarterback ran for 1,000 yards. What has he shown this year? They are terrified of Justin Fields running outside the pocket. That's mm-hmm. why they aren't calling him mm-hmm. plays to run. And I think besides the fact that Justin Fields is an athlete, and I know there was the play where he kind of bobbled the snap up, and he realized that, all right, well, this is just a lost play, but he was still able to gain the first down with his legs because he is a freaking athlete. And mm-hmm. and yes, he has talent through his arm, but when he is able to use his full ability, I think he is that much more of a confident player and confident quarterback. And then you kind of have to scheme for, yes, quarterback contain. And yes, teams could be, I'm not enough of a football fanatic to be able to say or whether or not defenses are scheming for the quarterback contain. But, I think when Fields is using his legs, you see him as a more confident quarterback, and you saw that with the stats as things kind of changed last year, and there was more promise, and that's why they went and got a number one receiver for DJ Moore, and being DJ Moore, and yes, the Claypool thing has been a little bit of a cloud on this team, and I think there's a reason this team played better when Claypool was out of the lineup. Hence what we saw against Denver and what we saw this week or last week. But no, I think unless this team shows a serious improvement, can finish over 500, I don't see Getsy and Eberflus coming back.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, and
who knows about Fields?
And who knows about Fields exactly?
Poles is not attached to him either, and Fields will be an NFL star outside of Chicago. It's just Bears brand.
And in recent episodes, that's what like me, Eric, and Jose will get into. Like, can we see Fields being the quarterback next year? Can we see Eberflus? Can we see Getsy? Again, Poles and Warren are not committed to these guys. These guys came into the organization with each other, right? Fields was already on the Bears when they hired Eberflus. Eberflus was hired, and then they hired Poles. Poles was hired, and then they hired Kevin Warren. So they started, well, how we called it, from the bottom up instead, or from the top to the bottom in a sense. They built the roof on the house first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're supposed to start off with your president, CEO, and Warren, and then have him make those decisions based on GM, head coach, starting quarterback, any sort of draft picks. But before you get out of here, because I know you got to go, the next few 5 games the Bears have, the schedule moving forward, they've got a home game against the Vikings, they've got a home game against the Raiders, Sunday Night Football against the Chargers, at New Orleans for the Saints, and then at home versus the Panthers on Thursday Night Football. Can the Bears have a 5-5 record? Because I'm already taking an L on that Chargers game. I think the Chargers is going to be an L, but the Vikes, the Raiders, the Saints, the Panthers, those all look like winnable games, especially if the defense and Fields and more can do what they did this week. Can they have a 5-5 record by week 10?
Can they? Absolutely. Will they? Absolutely not. And I hate to be that guy, but the reason I say it, we'll look at it. Yes, the Chargers. I think that's a loss. There's no question about that. That's gonna be Khalil Mack's redemption game versus this team, and I'm terrified to see what the hell that produces. Godspeed for Justin Fields in that one. If he can come out of that healthy, that's a win. Yeah. Raiders game. It'll be interesting to see what happens tonight on obviously Monday Night Football versus a divisional rival. I haven't watched a lot of Raiders football. I can admit that. I know Jimmy G's hurt. Is he playing tonight?
Jimmy G is playing tonight. Yeah.
But so that'll be interesting. But I do think the Bears can pull that one out, and that makes me feel a little bit more confident. Vikings. It's be an interesting game. As we started recording, there's more and more doubt that Justin Jefferson will not be ready to play. Yeah. This Addison kid that they've got who was decent
Jordan
for him.
He was doing really well
for them last weekend. He was producing. Matheson has been kind of a joke as I looked at replacement for Dalvin Cook, but again, he hasn't looked good in a Jets uniform either. But so I think the Vikings game is absolutely winnable. I think the Vikings have a little bit more talent there than the Bears do. So I just think Kirk Cousins pulls this one out, but I love it and would be all for it if the Bears are able to win that one. I do think I'll give the Bears the win in versus Vegas, but Chargers loss. We saw what the Saints D just did versus New England. Yes, as we talked about it just on the before recording for Slot Shot today. Are the Patriots the worst team in the NFL? Potentially, very easily, but
they are.
It's still Bill Belichick, but or not Bill Belichick. What am I thinking? They beat up on Bill Belichick, and it'll be interesting to see. Is Derek Carr healthy? Is that team fueling at a full speed? And they just got back Kamara, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Saints game. But I think that Saints D is just elite, and unfortunately, I don't have the Bears on that one either. Panthers, that's a win. So
they'll want 4-5. I think they'll
4-5, maybe 4-5.
Top 2 picks. I think they'll want to tie with the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a conversation to be had there. It's I think the Lions. As much as I didn't want to give Alex his credit on the Lions, I think they look like a scary team and
so
definitely the favorite to win the NFC North.
So
I see that as another embarrassing loss against a divisional rival, but
yeah,
we'll see. Then you get the Vikings and Bears, and then a beat down from the Browns, but we'll see.
Yeah, because the second half schedule looks a lot scarier than these next 5 games. All right, Jack, thanks so much for your insight on the Hawks. And dude, it was good. It was good getting back to it, man. It felt great.
No, I'll be around more, and I think I'll try and make what I can. But this guy is so talented enough; he's going to finish this whole thing on his own, and that's just the talent we've got at Star 6, and the type of ship that Rick runs with Big League Chicago. It's a pleasure to see you again, and we'll see you a lot more. I'm glad we don't have to talk about baseball. We're not wasting our time with that. But yeah, definitely go give all the Star 6 media attention, love, and support, and we appreciate it. And I'll catch you soon, no doubt about it.
All right, Jack. It was a good time, man. I'll see you later.
Yep. All right. Be good.
See ya. All right, and let's go to the comments real quick. We got Eric. Eric, what's going on, man? He's saying Chicago Bears going to the Super Bowl. That's bullshit, Eric. Don't bullshit me. Come on now. That's a goddamn lie. So we talked about the Bears, how they did offensively, how the rumors were swirling around about Eberflus. And Jack made a very good point, right? Thursday Night Football, you either win or you lose. And if you lose, you have 10 days till the next game, which will be Sunday against the Vikings. This is the time to do it. But the Bears are just, historically have never done that. Now, does that mean that they'll never do it? I don't know. It's obviously hard to tell, especially with the way what happened with Nagy, what happened with John Fox, what happened with oh my God, the other guy's name with Emery, whatever he was, he's from the CFL, whatever that dude's name was. Like, you look at all these things that happened, and then you see what happened with Lovey. Like a 10-6 record, you're going to fire Lovey. He could still be our coach. He could probably, maybe, you never know how it happens with Lovey, but you fire him after a 10-6 season like that. Again, craziness from the McCaskies, the McCheapskis, I like to call it. I never saw Eberflus being fired after this Thursday Night Football game. But again, Jack made the point, like, you do it now with 10 days in between a game. But let's talk about the record. As Eric says, I never lie. Yeah, all right, bro. Let's talk about the record. 1-4 right now after their win on Thursday Night Football against the Commanders. The next 5 games, again, they got the Vikings next week at home. Jack said that he thinks Kirk Cousins will be able to pull that one off, especially with a very good Jordan Addison rookie and a beat-up Justin Jefferson after he got injured just this past Sunday. He thinks he could pull that one off. I think they can win that one at home. It's a division rival. Obviously, they're going to play each other tough. But that defense of the Vikings is pretty damn bad, and it has been for the second year in a row. Now, our defense is going to have to be something very special, kind of like what they did against the Commanders, and our offensive line is going to have to be just as good, if not better, against the Vikings for a win to be even in the books. If they can win that, awesome. You got a 2-game winning streak. You're at home against the Raiders, while they're 1-3 and they're losing right now to the Packers 3-0 early in the first or midway through the first, they've not looked like a good team. The Raiders have not looked like a good team with Jimmy G there. Jimmy G has been in concussion protocol. He's gotten hurt. He has a history of injury. Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, you got Max Crosby on the defensive side. They have a lot of names there, but they just have not been able to make it click, the Raiders. So I think they can win that one at home too. The one that worries me, obviously, is Chargers. Sunday Night Football against the Chargers in LA. That one's going to be tough. But can the Bears do it, man? Because if you win at home against the Raiders and the Vikings, you're on a 3-game win streak. You're 3-4, staring sub 500 record now in the face, and you're hungry, and the Bears are hungry right then and there, and Justin Fields is doing what he's doing. DJ Moore is killing it like he was. You still got weapons in Kmet. You still have weapons in Mooney. You still have a very solid receiver in Equinemius St. Brown, and hopefully Roshan Johnson steps up to the plate. Deontay Foreman, Travis Homer, Khalil Blasingame Kari Blasingame, can step in and become a running back one, as you saw on Thursday Night Football. You got a lot of things going for you if you're the Bears and you're Eberflus and you're Getsy and you're whoever it is that's going to call the defense if Eberflus hires someone, which he did say earlier today. You got some hope going into that game, and you're really, if you're hungry for that game, if you're the Bears, you can take that win in LA. It'll be tough because the Chargers have a lot of weapons on the offense, and you got one of the top quarterbacks in Herbert there. So I'm taking that as a loss. But a 3-game win streak, you're going in there, staring a 4-4 record, and your season's still alive. Emotions run high. You saw what happened in that Thursday Night Football game when they heard about Dick Butkus dying. By the way, R.I.P. to Butkus, condolences to his family. Then they are in New Orleans against the Saints, and that defense is good. And look what they did to the Patriots. But the Patriots have just been bad this year, and they have been for about 2 years now. So was that defense for real? Look what the Packers did. They were able to come back against that defense. and win the week prior. And then you're at home against the Panthers, arguably the worst team in the NFL right now. The only winless team in the NFL right now. And while I don't know their record, probably winless against the Bears on that Thursday night football game. So, can you go 6 in a row? Can you go 6-0 these next few games? On a 6-game win streak, to go 6-4. Can you win 4 out of the next 5 to go 5-5? And again, your record, your season is still alive. The Vikings seem to be having a tough time. I don't know if they'll turn it around. I think they have a tough schedule as well. And even if the Bears do go 5-5 at the end of these next 5 games, their schedule looks rough after that. They go up against the Cleveland Browns. They have the Lions twice. They have to go against the Vikings again. It's going to be a tougher schedule, but again, if you can build that momentum and just be a very good NFL team who puts up 300-yard passing games, 150-plus yards rushing, and you got your number 1 wide receiver catching 3 touchdowns, sorry. At least 2 per game, like that's insane. Like this is how you turn it around. And Jack also mentioned, unless they do something like the Detroit Lions did last year where they won out their last few games, a division matchup to end the season against the Green Bay Packers too, which was sweet. Oh God, if you guys remember that one was sweet. Then Matt Eberflus, Luke Getsy, and this entire staff, as well as Ryan Poles and Justin Fields, are looking at a very, very, very long career in Chicago. Again, a lot of things got to happen. This team's got to play with a lot of heart, and they've got to play like they did Thursday night. Just like Eric said, the Bears have favorable matchups the next 4 weeks. If they play like the way they did Thursday, Bears are winning 3 out of 4. And then that Thursday night football game against the Panthers, you can kind of chalk that up as a win, hopefully. Now that's 4 out of 5. And again, they're at 5-5. The rest of their record, though, I have to see the rest of their record. So stand pat real quick while I do look at the rest of their schedule here. So we just had that Thursday night football game. After the Panthers, then they go to Detroit, take on the Lions. Again, going to be a tough one, especially in Detroit. Minnesota Vikings. Then they go into their bye before they're at home in Detroit. So 3 tough games there, all 3 division opponents at Lions and then at Vikings going into their week 13 bye. Then they come out of that again, facing the Lions, but this time at Soldier Field. They have to travel to Cleveland to take on the Browns. And who knows how Cleveland's going to be. All I know is that defense is very, very tough. And which Deshaun Watson are we going to get that game? Then you go week 16 against a tough Arizona Cardinals team who is widely considered one of the worst teams coming into the season. That's what everybody said. They've turned out to be a tough team, man. They beat the Cowboys. Joshua Dobbs has played well. His first interception was in week 5, just this past Sunday. Then you go against Atlanta, who, again, another tough team for the second year in a row, is not an easy dub. Ritter played his ass off at home. He doesn't lose at home. You got to keep that going, right? They're going to be at Soldier Field, but you have Bijan Robinson to worry about. You got Drake London. You got Kyle Pitts, who's starting to be used more. That's a tough one. And then week 18 will be the last game, and it'll be against the Packers. And regardless of whether the Bears are in playoff contention by week 18, we have to beat the Packers in Lambeau. They can beat the Packers in Lambeau week 18 and hand the Packers another season-ending loss like they did last year, like the Lions did last year. That'd be sweet, especially after what happened in week 1. And that one's TBD at Lambeau, so you never know what kind of primetime matchups they might be able to have there. So I know I sound very optimistic, and I know I haven't been optimistic. Obviously, the first 4 weeks of the season, there wasn't much to be optimistic about. You look at that loss now last week against the Broncos, and you're like, shit, we could be 2-3 right now. Going into this 5-game stretch where we may come out with an above 500 record. So you look at that and you're like, shit, we could have won that game in Broncos. But if you keep looking like that, you keep looking in the past, you don't get to be like me and be optimistic looking forward to these next 5 games. So hopefully the Bears can do that, and hopefully they can be 5-5, 6-4 after that Thursday night football game against the Panthers. And then the real test comes with the Browns, the Lions, another game against the Vikings, the Cardinals, all these teams. And then how else is good? Because I don't think the Lions are going to win the division 100%. They are going to win the division 100%. They're just so good. They are such a good team. So those are going to be 2 of the toughest matchups for sure, as well as the Browns coming up for the Bears. Now, the other big question. Can Justin Fields continue to do what he's been doing these last 2 games? 4 touchdowns, 2 weeks in a row. Tied for second in the league for touchdowns thrown with 11. He's got 5 interceptions, sure. But he didn't throw one yesterday. On Thursday. I don't think he threw one against the Broncos. He's tied for second in the league right now in the NFL. In the entirety of the NFL, Justin Fields is tied for touchdown passes with 11. I think that was how much he had his rookie season, or his first full season as a starter. Can he keep it up? Can Getsy continue to dial up these plays for Justin Fields, for the offense, for the running game, to just keep this output going? He eclipsed 300 yards against the Broncos. He got 282 against the Commanders. That's the biggest question. Because a lot of people are getting ready, Jose being one of them, Tony Football, Mr. Tony Football, one of them being that he's not the guy anymore. Trade him now for some value. I don't know if Tony Football said to trade him, but there's been a lot of talk from analysts, ESPN, all these guys in media saying trade Justin Fields now while his value is high and give up on the season and go for Caleb Williams next year. Caleb Williams isn't a fucking, for sure, thing. But if Getsy can continue to dial up this type of offense for this Bears team, they're going to look really, really good. They're going to look like a very competent offense, like they finally caught up to an NFL offense. And they can be very, very tough to beat if they continue this output. And injuries, like Jack said, pile up in the NFL. Hopefully nothing happens, because you saw what happened to Khalil Herbert, and they just re-signed Darrington Evans, a running back we had last year from the Miami Dolphins practice squad. So hopefully he could come in too, right? But Bears still have a lot of options at running back. But you hope the injuries do not start to pile up here in a very, very important stretch of games for the Bears. Because if they do, then that could really be the killer. But the defense needs to continue to play the way they played on Thursday, and not how they played against the Broncos, not how they played against the Chiefs. Because while there are a lot of names on this defense, it's looking like it's starting to click, but it has not clicked really yet. And we already have injuries on the defense too. Kyler Gordon is back, though. I think he has about 3 weeks to actually be on the field. It was him, and there was someone else, one of the centers that we have, backup centers, because you saw what Lucas Patrick was doing. Whitehair had to come in and be a center. Lucas Patrick, by the way, man, he's been having a rough stretch of games, so I think it's time for him to get out of here. But the offense needs to continue to do what it's doing. The defense will figure it out, and they have been figuring it out these last couple games. They just need to do it for an entire game like they did against the Commanders. Again, you can have a quarterback rack up all the yards he wants, as long as it doesn't end in points, or as long as it just ends in field goals and the offense is able to put up 7 points on the next drive. That's all that needs to happen. And Matt Eberflus gets to keep his job. Ryan Poles gets to keep his. Luke Getsy gets to stay as offensive coordinator, and will probably be poached for a head coaching job next season too, if that continues. But Bears fans are always like, well, let's hope. That's all we can do is hope that it continues to be this way. Luke Getsy just needs to make sure to continue those design run plays for Justin Fields, because just like Jack said, he's an athlete, man. You got to get him the ball. You got to get those design runs, and he had about 5 or 6 or 7, something like that in this game that got first downs, that were able to move, the chains, or at least the marker up 6-7 yards. Like, one run from Justin Fields gets you 6-7 yards. Why not do that? And then you have DJ Moore there, ready to catch a ball from Justin Fields, just in case that run doesn't work out. Got Khalil Herbert running angry. Obviously, he's going to be out for a few weeks, but now you got Roshan Johnson, you got Deontay Foreman, Travis Homer, Darrington Evans now. These guys can run angry and can get those yards that you need, and you got Kmet there. Big target, ready to get more touchdowns. 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. He had a stretch like this last season, get him the ball more, but design runs with Fields because of how much of an athlete he is. He had almost 60 yards rushing on Thursday. So keep that going. Defense has to continue doing what it's doing to get better. I think this defense can get better, especially after that 5-sack performance and that interception. I think we can do it, guys. Bears fans, I think we can do it. Call me crazy, but the Bears can be 5-5 by week 10, by the end of week 10. On that Thursday night football game against Carolina. And if Carolina stays winless and gets that number 1 overall pick in next year's draft, at least the top 3, and the Bears are doing what they just did with the Commanders, and maybe a wild card spot, which is something that I had said at the beginning of this season. Bears, I think, can get a wild card spot. You're looking at adding someone on defense now with a top 3 pick. Maybe another O-lineman. But probably defense. You want somebody like a Jalen Carter disrupting that quarterback, getting pressure. Don't get me wrong. Our offensive lineman that we got, great. He's been doing really well for a rookie. One of the top offensive linemen, like Jack said, in the NFL right now, and he's been doing great. But Jalen Carter looks so fucking good on that defensive side, doesn't he? With the Eagles, perfect team to go to. But if you're looking at a top 3 pick next year, you look defense, like Eric said, maybe another O-lineman. But I think we can do it. I think we can get to that fringe playoff team, wild card. Let's see, but right now, let's soak in the win, Bears fans. 40-20 against the Commanders. We have the Vikings on Sunday, and this could be the beginning of a really long winning streak if we can, really get it together here. But other than that, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and Facebook at Star6 Media and at _Star6 Media on Twitter. Go check us out on YouTube. We're putting out a lot of content on YouTube. Slot Shot is available on Spotify, Apple, all your podcast networks that you need to get it on. Go check their previews out for all the divisions, the conferences with Jack, Ross, and Alex. And then stay tuned for some Only Football. We're going to be live streaming Monday Night Football, as well as doing a Week 5 recap later tonight, so stick around for that. And then catch JCA Sports Podcast on Wednesday to preview the Bears game versus the Vikings on Sunday. Bears fans, it's looking a little bit better. I know we're only 1-4, but it's already looking a little bit better, so let's keep that alive. Let's keep that hope and that positivity moving forward for the rest of the season. And I will see you guys in just a bit on this Monday Night Football stream. But other than that, go Bears, go Blackhawks. They start their season tomorrow, so go check that out for sure as well. And I will see you guys next time. See ya!